Sometimes, to really get a handle on something big, something foundational, you kind of have to go back to the beginning.
Yeah, back to the instructions, the actual blueprint.
Exactly. Not
Yeah.
just looking at the finished product, but how it was put together, step by step.
Understanding the sequence, the specific things involved, the rules, that's what gives it its shape.
And today, our blueprint, if you like, is this really fascinating, incredibly specific passage from Leviticus chapter 8.
Right. And it's not like a summary, it's dense.
It lays out this whole ritual process, the consecration, that's the formal setting apart of Aaron and his sons for the priesthood.
Basically, yeah, it's the ordination manual from this text, how it was supposed to happen.
So our mission for this deep dive is really just to walk through that manual. We're going to unpack the steps, look at the actions, the objects.
And focus just on what this really detailed process tells us about how ordination and also atonement were actually done, according to the specific description.
So yeah, get ready, because the real insights here aren't in broad statements, but in the nitty-gritty details. Some are quite surprising.
Okay, so where does it start?
It kicks off with a direct command from the Lord to Moses.
Ah, okay, so presented as divine instruction, not a human idea.
Right. And Moses is told, okay, bring Aaron, bring his sons, but also a whole list of stuff. Specific clothes, this anointing oil.
Animals too, right? For offerings.
Yes, a bull, 2 rams, and even a basket of unleavened bread. And here's something striking he's told to gather the entire assembly. Everyone.
Wow, okay, so this isn't some like private backroom ceremony.
Not at all, it's public.
Yeah.
Right at the entrance to the tent of meeting.
That feels significant. Like the community needs to witness this priesthood being established.
Seems so. And Moses does it, gathers everyone, and basically says, okay, folks, this is what the Lord commanded. He's the one leading the whole thing, the intermediary.
So the first actual action.
Moses washes Aaron and his sons with water.
A cleansing. Sort of basic ritual purification to start things off. Makes sense.
Then comes the dressing. And it gets pretty elaborate, especially for Aaron. He's the high priest, after all.
Right, the text really spells this out, doesn't it?
Layer by layer, first the tunic, then a sash, the robe, this thing called the ephod with its special waistband.
And the breastpiece. Doesn't it mention something put inside the breastpiece?
Yes. The Urim and Thummim, the text just says they're put inside. Maybe objects for getting divine guidance or judgment based on how they're seen elsewhere.
Interesting detail. And then...
Finally, the turban goes on his head. And on the front, a gold plate called the sacred emblem. It's a whole uniform, really specific.
And his sons get dressed too, but differently.
Yeah, simpler garments. Tunics, sashes, caps. It clearly shows, Aaron's unique role compared to the other priests. The distinction is right there in the clothes.
Okay, washed, dressed, then the anointing oil. That feels like a key moment.
Definitely. Oil, in this whole context, seems to be about setting things apart, making them holy. Consecration.
And Moses uses it on the place first, the tabernacle.
Yes, he anoints the tabernacle itself and everything inside it. But get this, with the altar, it's really specific.
Oh yeah, house.
He sprinkles the oil on the altar 7 times.
7 times. Wow. Okay, 7's often a number for like completion or perfection in these texts.
Right. So he anoints the altar, its tools, the basin next to it, basically purifying and setting apart the whole workspace, you could say.
And then he anoints the people.
Yep. He pours the oil right on Aaron's head. It's a very visual, direct act. Then he anoints the sons too.
So it's not just symbolic. The physical act of applying the oil is crucial for setting them apart.
That's how it's presented, yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely necessary.
Okay, preparation's done. Washing, dressing, anointing. Now, the offerings. This sounds like the main event. Starts with the bull.
A bull for a sin offering, specifically.
And first, Aaron and his sons lay their hands on its head. That action comes up a lot.
It does. Often seems to mean like identification or transferring something. Here, it seems to connect them to this sacrifice being made as part of their ordination.
Right, gotcha. Then Moses slaughters it. And the blood, it's used on the altar.
In a very specific way. Some blood goes on the horns of the altar. The text says this purifies the altar.
Purifies the altar.
And the rest of the blood gets poured out at the base of the altar. This is described as making atonement for the altar and consecrating it.
Huh. So even the altar itself needs this process before the priests can really function there.
Seems like it. Then certain internal parts, fatty bits, liver, kidneys, they get burned on the altar.
Okay. But not the whole bowl.
No. And this is a really key point. The rest of it, the hide, the meat, the guts, Moses takes it outside the camp.
Outside, completely away from the sacred area.
Exactly. And burns it all up there. The text makes a point of this location. It's different from other offerings. This sin offering for the priest's own process is totally removed.
Interesting. That distinction really sets up the next offering, doesn't it? What was that? A ram?
A ram, yeah. This was for a burnt offering.
Okay. And same thing first. Laying on hands.
Yep. Aaron and sons lay hands on its head. Moses slaughters it.
And the blood.
Splashed against the sides of the altar.
Okay. Then what happens to the ram itself?
It gets cut up, the insides and legs are washed, and then the whole thing is burned on the altar.
The whole animal, unlike the bull.
Right. And the text describes it. A burnt offering, a pleasing aroma, a food offering presented to the Lord. Total consumption on the altar. A complete giving over, you could say, contrasting with the sin offering that was removed.
Okay, so that's 2 offerings down. Bull for sin, ram for burnt offering. There was another ram mentioned.
Yes, the other ram, and this one gets a special name, the ram for the ordination.
Ah, so its whole purpose is tied directly to this consecration ceremony.
Exactly. Aaron and sons lay hands on his head. Moses slaughters it.
And then, this is where it gets really unique in the description, isn't it? The blood use.
Totally unique. Moses takes some of the blood and puts it very precisely on the lobe of Aaron's right ear, the thumb of his right hand, and the big toe of his right foot.
Wow. Ear, thumb, toe, all on the right side.
And he does the same for each of Aaron's sons.
That is incredibly specific. What do you think that signifies? Dedicating those body parts.
It really seems like it. You know, dedicating their hearing to God's commands, their hands for the priestly work, their walk, their standing in the sacred space is very physical symbolism.
And the right side, often linked with strength or favor. Powerful imagery.
After that, some blood is also splashed on the altar sides, like before, connecting them back to the altar again.
Okay. Then what about the rest of this ram?
Specific parts are gathered up. The fat portions, fat tail, internal fat, liver lobe, kidneys, and, importantly, the right thigh.
The right thigh.
And remember that basket of bread. Specific loaves, one thick with oil, one thin, are taken and put on top of the fat in the thigh.
And all that gets put into their hands, Aaron's and his sons.
Right into their hands.
Mm-hmm.
A physical transfer. And then they do this thing called a wave offering. They literally wave the bundle fat kai bread before the Lord, like presenting it.
A symbolic presentation. Then what?
Moses takes it back from their hands and burns it all on the altar, right on top of the earlier burnt offering.
Ah, adding to it.
Yeah. And it's called an ordination offering, a pleasing aroma, a food offering. It's the peak of this particular sacrifice for their consecration.
And doesn't Moses get a share of this one?
He does. He takes the breast of this ordination ram, waves it too, and that's his portion, as commanded.
So the offerings seem done. Is the consecration finished?
Almost. There's one final act of like sealing the deal. Moses takes some of that anointing oil and some of the blood from the altar.
Oh, mixing them.
Yes. And he sprinkles this mixture on Aaron and his garments and on his sons and their garments.
Wow. So combining the oil of setting apart and the blood of atonement or dedication. A final powerful combination.
Exactly. It really drives home the point. And then come the follow-up instructions, also very specific. Moses tells Aaron and his sons, okay, take the meat from that ordination ram, the rest of it, and the leftover bread from the basket. Cook it and eat it right here at the entrance of the tent of meeting.
Eating their ordination meal right there in the sacred precinct.
Yep. And any leftovers.
Yeah.
Have to be burned. No taking it home.
Okay. Strict. Is that it?
Not quite. And this might be the most demanding part. He tells them they cannot leave the entrance area of the tent of meeting for 7 full days.
7 days. They have to stay there.
For 7 days and nights. Until the period of their ordination is totally complete. It's like an intense week-long retreat right at the heart of the sacred space.
Wow. That really emphasizes the gravity, the transformation involved. It's not just a few hours.
Not at all. And the text gives the reason. The Lord commanded this to make atonement for them. And it adds this really stark warning.
What's that?
They must stay. They must do what the Lord requires, so you will not die.
Whoa, okay. So obedience to every single detail isn't just preferred, it's presented as life or death for them in taking on this role.
That's the weight it carries in the text. And the chapter ends simply by saying, Aaron and his sons did everything the Lord commanded through Moses. Full compliance.
So if we step back and just look at the whole process described, wow. Establishing this priesthood, according to Leviticus 8, was incredibly physical, wasn't it? So meticulous.
Absolutely. It wasn't just, okay, you're priest now. It was washing, elaborate dressing, the oil anointing.
Multiple sacrifices, each handled differently. That really specific kind of startling blood application on the ear, thumb, toe.
Right. And handling the fat, the bread, the wave offering, the special meal.
And then capping it all off with that intense 7-day confinement. It's a lot.
It really is. And the level of detail in the instructions and the emphasis on following them exactly, it just underscores how serious and, well, sacred this whole ordination was considered in this text.
Yeah, it really highlights this idea that specific physical human actions done precisely as commanded, using tangible things like water, oil, blood, food, were seen as absolutely necessary for their atonement and their setting apart.
When you hear all these steps laid out, what part really jumps out at you? Is it the complex garments, or maybe that blood on the body parts?
Yeah.
Or the 7 days?
It's hard to pick one, but that blood application is certainly striking. But the whole sequence, this account, just focusing on the actions described, it gives us such a clear window into how this foundational moment for the priesthood was understood here. It's all about the physical, the precise, the obedient performance.
So thinking about just how rigorous, how step-by-step this whole physical process needed to be, based purely on these actions, it does make you wonder, doesn't it? What does this source text imply is fundamentally different about Aaron and his sons after they've gone through this incredibly specific, physically demanding ritual compared to who they were before? What change is enacted through these very precise, commanded actions?